Spent most of my life as a banker with NatWest, retired in '95, and have done various other jobs since. The last one being a solicitor's legal cashier, a local firm, and I retired from there in April of this year. In the past, I've enjoyed all sorts of sport, mainly cricket, and have done a bit of running with a club in the New Forest, and now enjoy very much watching sport on the television, or if I can get to a cricket game or rugby game, all the better.
When did you first notice you had a problem, and what did you do about it?
Yes, it's an interesting question, because it's difficult to actually pinpoint it to a certain time that made it a problem. And I think it was in April '97, when I was working for the Prudential, doing a lot of driving, and I found I couldn't take my right foot off the accelerator. Initially, this isn't a problem, because I thought, oh, it's another muscle thing. And all I did then was basically try and get rid of what I thought was a muscle problem by carrying on with the running, either on the roads or in the gym. And it didn't really cause me a problem when walking. But I noticed on a walking trip in the Isle of Wight, around about June of '97, and I had to stop after about, it was a 10-miler, say, and after about 7 miles I had severe cramp in my calf, which I'd never had before. And therefore I took it to mean that there was something wrong with my right leg, and I went to my local doctor. He put me in touch with a consultant relating to back injuries, and I had some tests there. And it turned out, when he looked at the X-ray printouts, that it wasn't what he thought, which was a trapped disc. And I went back to my doctor saying, well, I didn't think it had been a trapped disc either, because there was no real pain at all. And it was then the doctor put me in touch with another consultant, this time a neurologist, who specialised, obviously, in the nervous area. And I used to see him in Southampton every 3 months, and we'd have tests in the meantime. And it took some time.
What further symptoms did you experience?
It's the right leg mainly, and that stayed in the right leg for some time, but that got steadily worse. I had to use a stick to start with, and I was still working. And then I used 2 arm crutches, which I found very useful, and was able to walk quite a bit and climb stairs with these. Then, to my dismay, I noticed it travelling around my bottom area, if you like, and going down to the right leg, the left leg. And therefore both legs were now getting steadily worse. Then in November '99, I did have a fall in the house, and decided then that I ought to sit down in a wheelchair, and I've done that basically ever since.
When were you actually diagnosed as having MND?
This was November '99. Even then, I was sent to see Professor Lee in London for a second opinion in January 2000, and he confirmed it as being MND.
So this was 18 months after you first noticed the symptoms?
Noticed the symptoms properly. As I said, when I first noticed the leg not coming off the accelerator, I didn't deem it a real problem at the time. But I think I had my first meeting with the back specialist in April '98. Therefore, it would be about 18 months, yeah. Yeah.
What tests did you undergo?
All sorts of tests. The first tests I had were ones with electrical needles. I won't go into detail, but they stick these needles in and do readouts, look at the readouts, which are coming up live on the telly screen. And if nothing happens, they move it around a bit to make sure that it's actually connected, so to speak. I found those quite painful, and I was a bit of a wimp, sad to say. And then they decided to give me another test alongside that, and I went into another corridor. I said, "No more needles, please." They said, "No, no more needles." And it was a very pleasant lady, started clipping things to my toes and sticking things on my head, wires. And she said, "Just let me know when it starts to hurt." And all she was doing is turning up the electricity power. So, as I expected, the right leg didn't register as quickly as the left leg on this particular exercise. And then I can remember having an MRI scan. That is okay, but if you're claustrophobic, I think you've got to psych yourself up first. Because they whip my glasses off, and I go in through this tube, and it's just quite an eerie thing. In fact, at one time, the operator asked whether I was still alive, because I was dead silent for a bit. Then I had a lumbar puncture. I remember that was a brilliant thing. Can be quite painful. It depends how quickly the operator or the doctor can actually find the particular spot they're looking for. And I did have a nurse, because I had to lie on my side. The nurse was talking to me, and we established she lived at Brockenhurst, and I think we went for every walk around Brockenhurst there. But it was then, in November '99, having had most of the tests. I'm sure there's one I've forgotten, but I can't think of it, basically. They all seem meaningful tests to get rid of anything else it might be, any idea that it might be something other than MND. And it was in November that the specialist told me it was MND. Yeah.
How prepared were you for the diagnosis?
I was pretty well prepared, because I kind of knew. There were things that had been said before that gave me an indication. There was a report from the specialist to my doctor early on where it had mentioned that there was no scientific evidence for MND. So it showed to me they were looking in this area. And also there was a time with the specialist halfway through the times I've been seeing him that I sort of demanded to know what he thought the problem with my right leg was. And he told me that it was the main drive motor. Again, the word motor. So my wife wasn't a party to my thinking. But before we went to see the specialist for the diagnosis, I actually primed her, saying I thought I knew what it was, and therefore we were semi-prepared. But in fact, we were both stunned. And it does show the common sense of having somebody with you when anybody's given a diagnosis. And the good thing about it was that it meant that I was able to tell people the truth instead of saying, "Oh, it's a nerve problem," or "drop foot." Then it was in fact motor neuron disease, and I was quite happy to tell people that.
Did you approach any agency for help?
Yes, my wife Sandra did. She went to the Motor Neurons Disease Association, and this proved very fruitful, because in the first place they sent a pack which eased my mind, because it set out a lot of things which not only I needed to know, but also Sandra as well. And she took it all on board. I'm very pleased that she actually did take the onus of trying to get in Motor Neurons Association. And then you arrived, Jean, shortly after the diagnosis, and you were the catalyst for a lot of things that happened. For instance, you organised for the occupational therapist to arrive, and she came in and helped us in various ways. And also we had a recliner chair from the association, along with a bed riser as well. I nearly forgot that. It's the most useful thing, that is. And the occupational therapist arranged for a person to come in and put ramps in, so I could use my motorised vehicle. And really, since the diagnosis, I felt a lot better. it was up to then that I was, and Sandra, we were in complete alone, we felt, very alone. And now it felt good that we had arrived in, the association is the right word, you can actually substitute that with the word club if you like, it's that good.
Do you have other agencies involved now?
Yes, you mean people who help me. I've got a lady who is looking at the speech side of things. I've had an assessment with her, a good long talk, and she's told me what can be expected sometimes in that area, and I'm going to see her again in a couple of months' time. In the meantime, she has sent me a pamphlet with what exercises I might need to do, talk sensibly, that sort of thing, and hopefully it'll all work out and not be too dramatic. Also, I can have a bath. That's been organised as well. Because living downstairs as I do, the bathroom's upstairs, and I can't get upstairs anymore. And I just happened to say to Sandra one day, oh, I'd love a wallow in a bath, you know. And I think I'd seen somebody on television or something, and I thought, yeah, that looks good. And that's been organised too, so I can take my bubble bath and everything down to this place and spend a day generally being pampered. That would be quite nice. Otherwise, I have had splendid help from the occupational therapist. She is the one who helps me to look into the future as to what's needed. I've always been a person who likes to know what's going to happen. It isn't always possible to do that. But things like commodes and hoists, that keeps me feeling comfortable that these things are possible to put in, and that will make my life and Sandra's a lot easier. Also, we've had a special seat put in the car, which means I can transfer in more smoothly now, because it comes out and then you slide it back in. A lot of levers and things, but we got there in the end.
You've recently retired. How are you coping at home and adjusting to the changes?
Yes, I retired on April 7th this year, and before I'd retired I thought, yeah, I'm going to plan each day, structure it, read all the books I haven't read, and do this and do that. What I've found in reality is that you've got to be in the right mood to read a bit of Dickens or a novel. So I've got about 4 or 5 books on the go all at the same time. And this has only happened by chance. One day it might be a page of Dickens, or it might be a James Bond. Whatever hits the mood at the time. But I'm still reading, and I think that's good. I have finished off a couple of books I started about 2 years ago, and felt very pleased that I've done this, and that's an achievement. I think the most difficult thing I found is being on my own. Sandra goes to work early on, then comes back to dress me, and then I'm on my own till she comes home from lunch, and then she goes back. And there are times I feel much better having spoken to somebody, and when they've left, I feel good about the conversation one's had. It might be a neighbour, for instance, but it's very difficult, I find, to be on your own. You can watch TV, but you're not really watching TV, if you see what I mean. You need to be actually really focused on what you're doing.
You've talked to me before about your positive bubble. Could you explain this to me, please, Nigel?
Yes, this is something that... the first thing is you need to be positive with this. With MND, you know what's coming up to a certain extent, and it is an acceptance of this that makes life easier. If you don't accept it, then not only you have the problem, meaning me, but my carer Sandra has the problem as well. For instance, if I start all the time saying, why me, you can only say this once. I was told that by a lady with multiple sclerosis. You can only ask yourself once, why me? And I think I've done that. And you just get on and be positive. I like to feel positive. I can see this big bubble above my head. In a pure positive mood, this is a perfect cell.